All right, YouTube Cobra firing system fans, I'm going to show you a little trick here you can do when you're overhauling your Cobra modules. You're changing out Q strips. You take the thing apart for any reason at all. When you go to put it back together, you've got these screws here that you need to put in to secure the Q strips. And when you flip this thing over and you're trying to put those screws in and secure your rubber grommets, you need 3 hands. Well, an easy thing to do is just simply go ahead and pre-place your screws with their washers. Place them in their holes. Take a piece of tape and tape them down so they can't fall out. Now when you flip your faceplate over, your screws are all standing up. They're not trying to fall out. You can easily place your rubber grommets over those screws. Make sure you orient the thin side and the thick side properly. I don't know if that's correct or not. But basically, I'm just trying to show you, if you tape up these screws, set your grommets down, then it's really easy to just place in your Q strip, and you don't have to fight with trying to get that grommet lined up. You don't have to fight trying to hold those 2 screws into place with one hand while you're trying to put the Q strip in the other hand. Just put your tape on your screw heads and make your life a lot easier. So now I've got my screw head secured. I've got my grommet in position. It's an easy matter to take my Q strip and set it into position there. And the screws line up with the holes. All I've got to do is get the pins properly situated in the pin receptacle. My screws aren't falling out. I can take my securing nut and secure it on there, and then do the other one. And that's easy. There's the other screws. They're all secured in position. All I have to do is set my grommets in place. Put them right on the screw heads so they're lined up already. And now I can insert my Q strips and make the connections to the motherboard. It just makes things a little easier to secure those with tape on the other side where I put that tape. Now for these quick plug Q strips, they secure in with the screw onto this stand nut. You don't need to put a wrench on that. You don't need to put a screwdriver in that screw Phillips head. Just hold that with your finger. Put pressure on it while you tighten this with your hand. It doesn't need to be very tight at all. And if you're worried about these backing out, you could, if you wanted to, put a drop of Loctite on those threads. But don't crank it down. Don't put a socket or a wrench on this and a screwdriver on there. Just push with your finger, snug that just finger tight, and let it go at that. That way you're not going to crack the plastic standoffs. Now here's another tip when you're working on a module. If you're going to remove the key switch from the faceplate, you have to take this connector off. It's really easy to get this off if you use an ice pick. You can just set that connector down on a flat surface and push with an ice pick, and the connectors will come right out. You just give it a little push and the connectors will pop right out. Just push in that slot, push down and that way, and they'll come right out. That's a lot easier than fooling around trying to do it with a screwdriver. Just use an ice pick. Make your life quicker and easier. Also remember, when you are putting this unit back together, you put your antenna wire, comes from underneath the board, let it go around that standoff. Don't let it get up here and get pinched somehow. Keep it just around the outside of that standoff when you reassemble the back case. Watch out for that. Now, when you put this case back together, once you've got the case perfectly lined up, the back and the front case, use your fingers and thumb to squeeze the case together at each corner. I'm visually verifying that my antenna wire is not caught there. Manually turn that screw backwards till you feel it click, and then start it forward to make sure you feel it very easily engaging the threads. If it's tight in the first turn, you don't have it properly engaged with the threads that are already cut in that plastic. So turn it backwards, feel it click. Keep doing that over and over because it's easy to get this thing out of alignment. You can have it cocked off, at the wrong angle, so it's not properly engaging the threads that are in that boss right there. So squeeze that corner together, turn that backwards, feel it click, and just keep reorienting the direction of the screw. There we go. I was just reorienting the axial direction of the screw until I felt it easily threading. The first few times I did it, it caught, and that meant I was going to cross thread that plastic. So be careful about that when you're putting these back corner screws. Squeeze the case together, turn that backwards till you feel it click, run it forwards. Now that's tight, so that's not threaded. There we go, now I found it. Get your screw in the proper axial direction so it's going to go right into the threads, because you can't repair those threads in that plastic standoff. Now, if you want to run these screws down with an electric screwdriver, I recommend you don't do it. But if you do it, just run them down until they're just proud of the plastic case and stop. You can see that's just sticking up from the plastic case a bit. And finish the last final bit of the tightening by hand tightening. It just takes a moment. And that way you can feel that screw head hit that plastic case. You need very little torque on this. I mean, I'm just barely hitting it and stopping. I'm not applying hardly any torque to that, because again, you don't want to break these plastic standoffs inside of there. So either don't use an electric screwdriver at all, or if you do, only run the screw down till it's sticking up 1/8 of an inch, and finish by hand tightening. Now, if you've got a Cobra module with the numbers underneath the cues, and your helpers are always thinking that's cue 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because the numbers are adjacent, you can buy a new faceplate where they've moved the numbers up. It's $20. You got to tear the module apart, undo the key switch connector, take the key switch out, replace the faceplate, or you can just make up some labels and stick them on there. I'm going to stick those on in a minute. Save yourself some time and money and aggravation of having to totally dismantle a module just to change out the number position. And these you can leave alone, because your helper's not going to get that wrong. They both say 13 through 18. Or if you don't like it aesthetically, take a black Sharpie, mark it out.